Hello, I'm Sandy Walden, your Master Grief Coach, Master Grief Coach trainer, and founder of the Grief Healing Course. What happens when someone that you expect to be a supporter, who thinks that they are supporting, is not able to show up in the way that you need and that you expect? It's complicated stuff, isn't it? The truth is, not everybody in every situation has the ability to offer empathy and support, even if that is a role they've traditionally had with you. For instance, I think about someone who was a very good friend to us for years and years and years, knew our children, watched them grow up in many ways. Shortly before my son died, they began a divorce. It was really painful for both of them, and I think divorce is usually pretty painful for everybody involved. These were people who had been very much in love. Circumstances meant it was time for them to part. One of these people was calling me many times a day, often showing up at my house, and I was happy, not always happy, but I was able to listen and just be there. That felt very much like my role, and I was okay with it. However, my son died. This person was still in the same amount of extreme pain. They were not finding ways to process their own loss that were safe and healthy. They were on a loop, so to speak, which we all get, right? At the same time, they were not open to seeing a counselor or a therapist. And I was now plunged in the place of the most deep grief I've ever had. So, interesting enough, while we might expect this person to show up for me or for my husband or for my surviving sons, they were not able to. In fact, the conversations, the phone calls continued. This person would stop at the house and I would often say, I can't do this right now. Their response more than once was, you don't get it. You at least have 2 other sons. My spouse has left me. I don't have this person anymore. Now, when we hear that on the face, we understand they were completely discounting my suffering, my pain, my anguish, my grief. And what I want to say is, while that hurt, there was also this piece of me that knew this is not who this person is at their core. They are in too much pain and anguish right now to make room for anything else, for anybody else's suffering. In fact, this person was not able to make room for the fact that their spouse was making this incredibly hard decision and having their own pain. A devoted parent, they were not able to make room for the possibility that their children were suffering and going through something excruciating. This was not because they didn't care about me or my husband or son. It's because everything they were experiencing was so overwhelming. They were not even able to imagine that something else of significance that mattered was happening. Now, again, I'd known this person for many years, and at the time of my son's death, as I said, I'd been a coach for many years, so that helped me to understand, while this felt very personal, and for me it was not intended by this person to hurt me. They simply had no room in their world for anyone else's experience, as I said, including that of their children and their soon-to-be ex-spouse. So certainly, the possibility of having room for me was too much. We had conversations about this, and the person kept coming back to, yeah, but you've still got kids. You still have John, my husband. You still have, but I don't. Those comparisons were very dismissive, not intentional on their part. And the reason we needed to stop speaking about this, and that I eventually said, I love you and I care about you, but until you've been through something that's able to help you process and begin to expand this experience, I can't help you. I can listen to you from time to time, but I cannot have you eliminate, dismiss, or diminish mine. Does that make sense? It took a number of months before this person finally stopped calling and showing up. And I understand that they did eventually find their way. But what I found very interesting was as they were beginning to find their way, that's when they stopped calling and showing up for me. I do not want to in any way shame or blame this person. I want to be very clear. They were doing the very best they could with what they knew, with what they felt, with the emotional and mental state they were in at the time. They were doing the best they could. It simply didn't make room for me. It was not in my best interest to keep stepping away from everything that I needed. I could not be hearing, at least you have your husband, at least you've got 2 other sons. Because every time that happened, it felt like another hit, as though the loss of my son did not matter. And of course it mattered. It was significant. It is why I was grieving. I share this because sometimes when these things happen, and most of us have an experience to some extent or another of something similar, it's not because this person didn't love me. It's not because they were not a friend for all those years. It's because they had no capacity within them to make room at that time for something different, for something that was someone else's. You might say they had no bandwidth to handle this. There's all sorts of language, and I'd be curious to know what language is for you. Often, when we can make room to say, you know what, I've got to sit with mine, you need to sit with yours. Sometimes we can come back together afterward. Sometimes it doesn't happen. The truth is that many things happened in personal lives for my husband and I, as well as for this person, that meant that we had distances of other sorts. And so we did not come back together in ways that I might have expected. But with some people it does. Understand, even when we are going through the most painful, anguished, excruciating time of our lives, even people who love us are not always able to be there. We don't always know everything that's going on in their world that might be overwhelming and completely overtaking them. I did know in this circumstance, but again, even though this was someone I cared about deeply and knew so much about, I was in their house a lot, knew and loved both partners and their children. We still don't know everything that's going on in their mind and their heart. I suggest and I encourage remembering self-care first. What is best for you? It was not okay for me to be completely available for this person and deny what I was going through. If we had been able to have these conversations of give and take, this is what this person is going through, and hear and listen and trust and have space for mine too, whether it was discussed or not, it probably would have been different. Because there was no room to even allow in this person's mind or heart that what I was going through something, it was too much. It was too painful. It felt ignored. It felt diminished, dismissed. It was as though while I was hoping to support this person, I needed to pretend that I was not broken. I couldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. I would encourage you to remember, we can be in a conversation with somebody and all the focus can be on them. If that's right for us and for them, I'm okay with that. Sometimes I need all the conversation for me. But there has to be an understanding, if you will, of all of the experiences and feelings you're having still being of significance, not dismissed, not pretending they are not there. We don't always need to be part of the conversation other than listening. In fact, sometimes we don't want to. But the truth is, we are still going through what we are. Self-care means honoring what you are thinking, what you are feeling, what you are experiencing. If that person cannot offer empathy, compassion, support, how about understanding as best we can, they're best doing the best they can. I don't want to resent this person. I can be disappointed. I can be whatever feelings I have. But I want to, personally, I want to find space between us, put healthy boundaries in place, and let them be with their stuff, with my love and compassion. They are doing the best they can. There's no room for me. If I'm taking good care of me, I will probably let them go on their way and understand there's not going to be any compassion and support or empathy from there for whatever reason. Taking care of myself means reaching out to people who are open to all of us having our own experience. I'd really be interested in understanding and learning, how has this shown up in your world? Or hasn't it? Maybe it hasn't. When there has been someone in your life who's not able to show up in any way, how have you moved through or past it? Has the relationship come back together in a different way? Or has it been a time of saying, I love you and goodbye? Or is it something different? The more we share, the more we learn, the more we grow, the more we heal. Today, I wish you a day of peace and calm. And I'm hoping that everybody who comes into your world in any way is able to share kindness and compassion and love with you, because you deserve that. We all do. I'm Sandy Walden. Thanks for being with me today. Namaste.